Good morning, everybody. This is 12.3's weekly ACT training session. Today's really not so much of a training as a demo. Topic of today's session is what is new in ACT version 18. Just released last week. It's official, so we put it on our machines and now we can show it to you. We did do a road show a couple months ago, actually, where we had a beta. This is the official release candidate. And get rid of the time here. I'll preface all this that v18 is not feature loaded. What happens in the world of computers quite often is that publishers like ACT have to respond to what other publishers do, like Microsoft. This year in August, Windows 10 came out. ACT knew it was coming out, and so their big effort was to make sure that ACT worked with Windows 10. Also, on September 22nd, Office 16 came out, Office 2016. So there's new versions of Excel, Word, and Outlook that ACT had to respond to. So they only have so much development resources, and so this to me is what I call a compatibility fix, which means feature-wise, there isn't a lot in there. And I got to admit, every year we get together with them, and they ask us, what features do you want to see? And a lot of us last year said, you know, it does pretty much all we needed to do, fix some of the stuff that's in there and make sure it runs on all the equipment out there. So that's what they've done. But I am going to review what's different about it. And they did do a lot of work on the website. ACT for the last 3 years, especially since they were purchased by SwiftPage, very web-oriented company. So a lot of the web stuff is where they put their efforts. But they have to keep the desktop stuff going. And they put a lot of efforts there, but it was just to keep it running. So it sounds a little flippant sometimes that I say the big difference between v18 and v17 is that v17 was orange and v18 is blue, but you'll see my ACT icon is now a blue ball instead of an orange ball. Big deal. But I've installed some v18 for some people and they have trouble finding their ACT. So I will start up ACT from scratch. I will load it into the demo database. And here it comes. Oh, I didn't register my licenses yet. I got to do that. I have license keys. If you are on a maintenance plan or subscription with ACT, you are entitled to v18 for nothing. It's part of subscription, and they are sending out license keys furiously. You should have them soon. If you don't, please call us. So here's ACT v18. You'll see the desktop client looks amazingly the same. Some stuff is blue. And that's about all I can say about it. They're doing some small things in the background to push more and more of the preferences to the database. I'll talk about that for just a second. But if I go to Tools, Preferences, and older versions of ACT, and this is all over the place. You'll see if I go to Communication, I can tell it which word processor I want to use. So this setting was kept on your computer in a file. And you could actually have, and so if I wanted everybody in the company to use Microsoft Word, I had to go to each computer and set this. And because it was set for each user could have it differently. The other option here is to use what's called the ACT word processor. I'll never speak of it again. You shouldn't use it. But if you don't have Word, you can use that. And so there's these settings that were kept on your machine. It was called a preferences file. Quite often those files got corrupt for a lot of different reasons. Your preferences would get screwed up, and or you lost your machine or whatever. The data is kept on the database on the server, but your preferences were kept on your machine. And now you'll see this little update button here that says apply this to all users. We're now keeping a lot more of the preferences up on the database, and I can set this for all users. I believe this is something only admins can do. But you'll see settings here. If I go to startup, the startup view, I can tell ACT I want to start up on my calendar, or I want to start up on that welcome screen. The default when you first install ACT is to give you this welcome screen, which is good for new users, but for advanced users, generally they want to blow right past the welcome screen and they want to go right to their calendar or their contact list. Now I can update this again for all users. And a lot of other settings are being kept there. So they're slowly migrating everything up to the database. And again, this is with an eye towards the web, because someday you'll hit Act from a cloud type of thing, and you might be on a tablet, you might be on a work machine, a home machine, a phone, and all those settings will be kept in a central place. Another thing they're working on. I will review some of the changes over the last 3 years, because I know not everybody here is on v17. Some of you are on v16 or v15. Of course, when you upgrade, you get all the cumulative new features. But for now, I'll just talk about v18. So this is the, whether you're on Pro or Premium, this is the product as it is today. They prettied it up just a little bit. They tweaked some stuff in the background, but it is the only version of Act that will be certified and supported for Windows 10. If you have v17 and you go to the latest service pack and the latest hotfix, it will probably work for you, but Act may or may not support you. I think right now they are, but what they have to do to have the Windows 10 sticker put on the box, there is no box and there is no sticker, but to be able to say that this is a Windows 10 product, they have to submit the product to Microsoft, and they with a pile of cash, and Microsoft will then test it and certify it, and they're not going to go back and do that for their older products. As Act moves to the subscription model, they think everybody on subscription just will get v18, and so if you want Windows 10, you'll have this because you're part of subscription. They don't want to have to support 4 or 5 versions of Act, and every time they fix a bug in Act, well, what about me? I'm on v16, so they just be on subscription, and you'll be on the version of Act. Another thing about subscription is a lot of people, and I found this out in my road shows, I'd say half the people in the room said that they were on a rented or subscription version of Outlook and of Office. And again, Microsoft will just periodically migrate you up to the new version. As I said, in September, Outlook and Office went to 2016. I got a call yesterday from a guy whose Office was upgraded on him, and he needed to upgrade his Act to work with Office 2016. So if you're on subscription for one product and they talk, generally all your other products you want to be on subscription as well, so that they stay together. Okay, so there's much bigger difference in Act for Web, and I'm going to bring that up now. And I have to preface this that it may not work because I haven't yet installed Act for Web. I need to keep my web server on an old version for a customer I'm working with right now. I can't go to v18 on my web server. So I do have access to one of Act's alpha servers. And let me bring it over here. This is it. You'll see if you read this URL at the top, it's an Amazon server. I was a little concerned this wouldn't come up because Act has moved from Amazon to Google. Of course, we all know you can have Act host your databases for you for an additional fee. You don't have to have servers and databases in your office if you don't want. Act rents space on Google, and Google gave us resellers a lot more ability to manage your data for you. Amazon does a thing called co-location where other people's data is on your same virtual machine in Google, and that meant they couldn't give me like desktop access to that machine because there was other people's stuff on it. Google lets us give each person their own virtual machine. So that's why I was worried this wouldn't come up, because I think the relationship with Amazon is kind of going away a little bit. So this is Act for Web splash screen. They made this pretty and they made it blue. This is a demo database that they gave me access to. This is the release version, I believe. Maybe it's 5.02, but this is close to release here. So let's log in and see if it comes up. And you're going to see that Act for Web looks quite a bit different. They've really overhauled the interface here. Again, without going into the boring details, Act Desktop, this uses something called Windows Forms. And Windows Forms is kind of an old technology. Act has to migrate away from it. If you run a super high resolution screen like the Microsoft Surface and some other, I've seen some Lenovo's. Actually, I just bought a new Windows 10 machine. It had a 2,000 pixel display. You'll see some of your fonts look funny in ACT. ACT was never designed to work with like a 3,000 pixel display, but that's what's coming out now. And so they're going to make ACT, they're going to migrate everything more towards this web type interface. And this is just ACT running in a browser. These are the contacts. I can go to the list view here. You should be able to figure this out if you were using ACT. I'm running this out of a Chrome browser, and here's the calendar. Again, it's blue, it's not orange, a little bit easier on the eye. I didn't put anything in December, but let me go back to like October. This is when I was playing with the beta. You can see I've got my calendar in here. I can look at other users, select them all, I'll get yelled at. Yes. Nobody put anything in there. Interesting. I said all users. Would you like to continue? Yes. Interesting. Well, I actually, if you were on premium and you wanted to go to this month, I'd probably hold you off a little bit because there's so much work going on here. They've already had 2 hot fixes, which are called, like bug patches since the release Tuesday. So, that's software, and this is a big rewrite. Anybody who has used the old ACT for web knows that this looks a lot different. So they rewrote a lot of code here. The other thing that I can only talk about right now is that v18.1, which is scheduled for February, March, will have a thing called a web API. And I think I will demonstrate that today, as much as I can. So ACT came from the Windows desktop world, and it used SQL Server, and it used this thing called .NET, and that's how desktop programs would talk to each other. But now as everything moves to the cloud, .NET is not the language of the cloud. What is the language of the cloud is called RESTful interface. RESTful, it stands for Representational State Transfer, which means nothing to anybody, including me, but I understand how it works, and it's how you can move data between different cloud sources. And again, we have Gmail over here, and we might have a Google Calendar over here, and we might have our Outlook over here, or SharePoint, and we want to move data back and forth. Well, these servers could be on different continents. How are they going to securely move data back and forth? And they do it with representational RESTful interface. ACT is working on what's called a web API that will support that, and it's in beta right now. We're working on it, and we will allow us to interface your ACT with really anything on the web. And you can do it by writing what's called your own, scripts. That's kind of a programming language. It's not as scary as a full-on programming language, but it's not easy. But there is a little thing out there called Zapier that can be free, and it'll kind of explain how this works. So I'm going to show you Zapier real quick, and it's just, you will be able to do this with ACT. And so I'm going to actually go to www.zapier.com, and you pay by what's called the Zap. A Zap is a connection between 2 of your web programs. You can get 5 for free. If you want to do hundreds and hundreds of zaps a day, you'll have to pay a little bit. This is another thing, but let me log in here. Hope I remember my login. There it is. I'm on the free level, by the way, and I've got some zaps built here, but I will make a zap, and I will say, so a zap is really what's called a trigger and action model. You see it says here, choose a trigger app, and here, choose an action app. So in a few months, when this new web API comes out and they submit it to Zapier, you'll be able to just use this to actually notify you or do something. on the web. And so as a trigger app, I'll say, you'll actually see these are all my applications, and here's one called Act Essentials. So there's a product Act has right now. It's a super, super light CRM product called Act Essentials. And that's already up on Zapier. You will see Act Premium up on Zapier soon. But there's other things on here. So I could say, oh, there's so many. I'm still in the A's. But stuff everybody knows, like here's Facebook. So if I add a friend in Facebook, I want to add them to my Act automatically. There's Dropbox here for those of you that use Dropbox. So I wrote a Zap here, and I'll do it again. I'll click Dropbox, and the trigger now is these are the things that happen within Dropbox. If somebody put a new file in a directory, I'll pick that. That's the only thing I can trigger on with Dropbox. So that's my trigger. If someone puts a file in my Dropbox, then over here in my action, I might want to say go down to Gmail and send me an email. And then I'll go to continue. It's actually going to ask me to log into my Dropbox account. It's going to ask me which folder do I want to monitor for, and where do you want to send the email and what you want the email to say. But these are the steps. And so just to go back to these things, there's a lot of cloudy things here. You'll see if I come down here to, there's QuickBooks. So I could actually, if someone added a contact to my Act, add them to my QuickBooks. Where's my queues? So many things in here. Half of these I have never heard of. Here's QuickBooks Online, which, by the way, QuickBooks Online, you'll see there's a little premium above it, and that means you have to be on a paid version of Zapier to use that. Just that's the way Zapier works, but it's not expensive. So anyway, when something happens in one of your cloud apps, you can make something happen on one of your other cloud apps, and most of them are on here. So in a few months, you'll see Act v18. There's MailChimp if you want to use that. So many of these things that, Mad Mimi, I have no idea what that is, but, you can connect to it. This list just keeps growing. So that is Zapier, but this is an example of how RESTful interfaces can work. Zapier, and Zapier is not the only one. There's a lot of them, so you can actually, use other things. But as people move their stuff to the cloud, you'll be able to exchange data between your cloud apps. People used to ask us to write programs to say link Act to the accounting package. Well, if your accounting package is now up in the cloud, this is how you can do it. And you can almost write these yourself. And you make a Zap and you say, run this every time I get a new account or a new customer in my Act, I want you to add them over here. Put them in my Google Contacts. So here's Google Contacts, and when I get a new contact, send me a Gmail, something like that, to somebody else. Okay, so that's Zapier. So that's me talking about Act for Web, and you can see that there's been a lot of effort here, and there's been a lot of effort in this API, and the API is something you'll never see, but it will allow you to do a lot of stuff in the back end with Act. So that's where they're putting their effort. On the desktop product, it was to make it compatible with all the new stuff out there. I got to tell a lot of, Microsoft kind of hurt Act a little bit this year. When Windows 10 dropped, they immediately let everybody on Windows 8 upgrade for free. And a lot of people took that, and then they found out which one of their programs didn't work afterwards. And sometimes it was Act. Talking to a guy yesterday who upgraded for free, and a lot of things quit working. And then Microsoft moved them to Office 2016, and a lot more things quit working. So I guess subscription can be a little infuriating because if you're on Act cloud servers, right now they're on 17.2. They haven't moved to 18, but they will. One day you'll wake up and you'll just be on 18, and they're not going to tell you. That's how subscription works. You've seen it with Facebook where they change it on you without telling you. So the third thing to talk about is Act Mobile. I'm going to see if I can jump on the mobile product here, but that really hasn't changed. So this is Act Mobile, and if you use Act Mobile, I'll make this look like a phone. You'll see it looks the same. A little bit blue instead of green. And so to summarize v18, it's Windows 10, Office 2016, big changes on the web product, much more of a web and cloudy ready product than it was before. You got to remember, Act came from the Windows desktop world, and they've been trying to, the analogy I always draw is that the Windows desktop world is kind of like land-based life, and the cloud is like water-based life. And what Act did was they made you a diving suit, and they tried to make they tried to make it possible for you to go in the water and survive. But really, it wasn't a natural thing. Now they are migrating to technologies like this API that are meant for the web and the cloud. And it takes time. There's a million lines of code in Act. So what I wanted to talk about is if you're on v17, feature-wise, you won't get a lot. But if you're on v16, you will get what was new in v17 and v18. And what was new in v17 that I liked a lot was two things. See if I can just bring it up here. Under Manage Users, you have a thing called a browse user. It's a read-only user. And those are people in the company who can only look at Act but not change anything. And you have now, I don't want to say unlimited, but you can have many, many browse users. So if you buy 2 Act licenses for the 2 people in sales, but the 10 people in operations want to be able to look at Act, we can put Act on their machines, and we can, they don't have to buy licenses for those people. Also, you can hide inactive users in v17. So it's possible that some of these people don't work here anymore, and every time I go into, like I want to schedule a call for somebody else, I have to see their name listed. Now I only see the people who are active. It's the same with if I were to go to like the opportunity list and I wanted to select my users. Again, I only see the users that are active. All the old people that don't work here anymore are out of that list. They're still in the system, but they're hidden. And that was a nice little feature. In v16, the feature I like a lot, is probably the best feature in the last 5 years, in my opinion, is the history list, which shows me all the history that's gone into the system chronologically. I can look at what went in yesterday, and I can select which types, and then I can dump this to Excel. So basically, for a lot of salespeople, it's like, here's all the meetings I went on last week. Just change it to last week. There's last 7 days. And you can filter out the emails if you don't want, and you can pick your users. So I can see, if I want to see more than one person, I can see what these 4 people did. But this used to be done with a notes history report, which was kind of a pain. Now I can just look at history and almost sit here and watch activities get completed in real time. Plus I can dump it to Excel and send it off and say, here's all the phone calls I made last month. Things like that. There's a lot more about the history list. We do a whole session on that in our training. So that was a big thing in v16. They do keep, I guess I just want to reiterate the point that when you have, so many development guys, it's like, okay, what do we work on this year? Well, this year we're going to work on putting these features in, but then Microsoft comes out and does something. They've got to divert, and they did that. They knew Windows 10 was coming. As someone who's been doing this for 22 years, there was this golden period where for like 6 or 7 years, the only operating system out there was Windows XP. And, we sell Goldmine and we sell other products, Act and Zoho, and you could see during that period, all those companies could just focus on features because it was just the XP world. And then Microsoft kind of screwed things up with Vista, and then 7, and then 8, and then 10. And so hopefully the world will settle on an operating system and we can all go forward with it. Nobody has Vista anymore, I hope. Okay, it's 9:55. I don't know if we're meeting next week. Give me a minute, I'll pull up my production database. And I'll take questions, and I'll let you know what next week we're talking about. We're getting close to the holidays in the year here. And two things. We do a schedule of like 10 or 12 sessions for 3 months. And we're coming up on the end of a 12-week session. We'll take a break or two for the holidays. And then I'll do another 10 or 12. And I really want you guys to tell me what it is you want me to talk about. Talk about anything. I kind of know which sessions are more well attended than others, and I kind of see which ones generate questions. But otherwise, I got to guess at the topics. And I want to make sure you're getting as much out of these as you can. So if you have any ideas for topics, please. Oh yeah, we're doing Word templates. I got to do some work on that one. A few weeks ago, I tried to demonstrate this and it was broken. I couldn't get it to work. So we weren't going to have a session next week, but I promised I'd make it up to you. And so we're going to make that up. And I don't know how many people are working next week. I will be up until a point, I guess. But we will do the mail merge to Word, Word integration tomorrow or next week at 9:30. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Anybody go on V18 yet?
Geoff, this is Jim McGrogan.
Hey, Jim.
I installed V18 on my computer, so I'm running it on desktop. And one of the things I'd like to see, and it may be a capability I haven't run across yet, but is I'd like to create a field in the contact, which will allow me to create a color that goes in that field based on the last activity date. So I can verify before I call the customer or anything, if the data is very old. And this way I can look up the information before I call the customer. So I'd like to see red, green, blue, something like that based on the age of the information.
You can't do that in ACT. However, I think there's a little free add-on that will let you do it. I got to go find it. I also got to make sure it works with V18 still. That's a feature Goldmine had, and it's an excellent feature. Good idea. I forgot about that. We've been Goldmine partners since the late 80s, and they had a thing called field, record typing. But anyway, I did that. If someone hadn't been talked to in a year, their name was red.
Right, exactly.
And so I could just look at a list of people. I could go to my contact list and see the red names, and as a salesman, your job is to make them blue. And we did that a lot. And that was something built into Goldmine, but it's something ACT never did. And I remember a guy wrote, it was kind of called a conditional field thing. So let me dig around, because that would be a nice thing to resurrect.
Okay, cool.
You're doing old memories for me, but
I just inherited a huge database of 2,800 contacts, and it's like, I'm going through it. Half the people are gone, and all this other stuff. And it's just like to, at least keep straight the ones that I updated already, and not have to go back saying, "Oh, did I do that one?"
Yeah. Well, there is, these gray fields here that tell you the date of last reach. So the last time I talked to myself was, August 25th, and the last time I met with myself was, next February. I wonder how that happened. I must have been goofing around. So, you can search for people you haven't talked to in a year, but it's nice to have that visual cue. We used to have a thing over here under status. We have a person, credit hold is one of our status. You get someone who doesn't pay their bill. I like it to be like bright red and blinking, and I'd almost like, a boxing glove to come out and punch you in the nose and say, "Hey, don't even talk."
That's Windows 11.
Yeah, when you log in, bang. Anyway, it never had that feature, but it's something that could easily be added. You know what? I'm going to actually put that in as a suggestion as well. So, all right. Anybody have any other questions?
Hey, Jeff.
Yes.
John Marshall. The on-premise installation has a lot of flexibility as far as customizing layouts and fields and tabs and
yes,
a lot of abilities. How much of that is also capable in the Windows version? Well, I mean the cloud version.
99.8%.
Really?
And in other words, they've done, if I go back to the, excuse me, let me go back to the demo here. Oh, I gotta go, sorry, I gotta go on the cloud. Never mind, it's over here. Open this up. Let me go back to regular cloud. Again, this is an alpha, not even a beta site, but it should have everything. So if I go to like tools, you'll see design layouts is right here, and I can go open this up and design my layouts. When I say 99.8%, so there's your layout designer, and I'm on the web. You'll see I'm on Amazon here. So it looks a lot the same. I've just heard stories from other ACCs when they have to do like 300 fields down here, a massive layout design. They said it's easier to do it on their computer and then send the whole database up to ACT and have them publish it, rather than try to do it through the web. You know, the web connection, especially like if you're on a phone or something, just every once in a while it'll drop out on you. You know, probably drive you crazy if you get 3/4 of the way through it. So they did add all of the admin tools. Used to be on the web, you couldn't manage your users or you couldn't define custom fields. That had to be done by someone sitting at a Windows version of ACT. Now all that stuff is in the web, the layouts, fields, manage users, and the big other thing they're adding now, still catching up to it, is the ability to add your own plugins if you use third-party products like Topline Dash or Designer or something. So you'll be able to manage those. That's the one thing missing out of this. Otherwise, it's very close to, again, they want to move it to the web. They would really like to host everybody's data on Google and charge you for it. And then they could just update you themselves, and you don't have to manage your own servers. I have mixed feelings about that, just to beat that horse a little bit. To me, there aren't many on-premise software companies left. Goldmine and ACT really are two where you keep your data in your office. I've met a lot of business owners who just kind of, you know, like, what if I miss a payment? You know, all my stuff goes away, or what if the company goes out of business, or where is it being kept? Could it be hacked? So people just feel better about having the data nearby. And also, all the other guys up there, the Salesforces and Zohos and Sugars and all the other ones, they're subscription only. You're forced into being in the cloud. And I really hope ACT maintains this on-premise or cloud flexibility, because not too many people have it. And it really gives you the ability to go either way. I got people. Oh, go ahead.
The question was, you know, the migration from desktop to cloud for us that have local installations of ACT and Outlook that are married together. When you move one up to cloud, you know, can ACT for Web work with a local install of Outlook, or do you need to move also up to like Office 365 to have, you know, cloud pairing?
That's a great question, and I forgot to mention it. So right now, the ACT and Outlook integration is what's called client to client. In other words, it's on your computer, your ACT client. For instance, my ACT here, I'm running ACT on my computer, but my data sits on a server in another room, but in my office. So it's called client server, and the client is my machine. And then my Outlook, I don't even run Outlook anymore, but that's a different thing. Anyway, the traditional ACT and Outlook integration was client to client. It's always been a little shaky, mostly because Outlook is such a paranoid thing. They are working on a server to server Outlook integration. So this won't run on your computer. This will run, again, it's the two cloud things talking. It's the ACT database wherever it's kept, either on your server or on theirs or on Google, talking to your mail server directly up in the cloud. And that means if you send a piece of email on your phone, that email is going through the cloud, and the server will see it and put it in ACT for you. So you don't have to like use Outlook on your computer. You could use anything for email, because all of your mail clients, whether it's your phone or your tablet or your home PC or your work PC, they all go to the one mail server. So they're going to I've actually seen it, a beta of it, and it's going to come out soon. It's another part of v18.1. So it's a brand new Outlook integration that's really going to work better because it's server level. And I only have to install it once for a company because all the employees' mail generally goes through one server and all their ACT data sits on one server. So it's just between the two servers. And I don't care, I don't have to put stuff on everybody's computer. Again, everything's being moved off the client, and because we all have all these different devices now, we're using tablets and phones, and ACT and Outlook aren't on them. So it doesn't matter. You'll be able to use ACT mobile or ACT for the cloud, web, and you'll be able to use whatever mail client you want. So long answer to a good question. And I'm really ready for that because Outlook, every version of Outlook seems to get more paranoid, really doesn't like to be talked to by other outside programs. It's common way to get a virus is through Outlook, right? It mails itself to all your friends. So Outlook doesn't like it when outside programs try to access its information. And I spend a lot of my support time is spent keeping that integration working. So sorry, I get on a soapbox for that one because it's frustrating for the clients and it's frustrating for me. It's just the way it's architected. When that whole thing was built 10 years ago, everybody used one computer for their email, and it was Outlook. Now everybody uses 4 devices for their email, and they're different. So it's gonna be better. And I've seen it. I was really hoping it would be in this release, but it's probably going to be. I'm probably going to be able to show it to you next month. It'll be out in February or March with the 0.1 release, but I'll have a beta of it. I'm sure I'll be on the beta team. And then you'll see a better idea what I'm talking about. And that's really cool because in Outlook, I can now display ACT data right in Outlook. If I get an email from you over on the side, I can see some Outlook or some ACT fields displayed in my Outlook because it's all happening up at the server level. So, all right, it's 10:07. I'm glad most of you stayed on. Does anybody have any other questions or? Okay, if I don't see you next week, have a great Christmas and New Year, everybody. And if you have any ideas we're probably going to send a survey to you anyway, but if you have any ideas for topics, please let us know. I'd rather answer your questions than just talk into a phone. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, guys.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.